wonder whether there was a point, for either of you, whether there was a point at which you can identify a moment when somebody might have intervened or might have given you an option to not waste 10 years of your life, or to not live the way that you were living, and how they might have intervened, whether that can ever be family or whether actually it needs to be somebody else, and yeah, what people can do.
And there was one small little encounter I had. There's this. She used to attend the meetings that we used to go to, and then she left. And I could never understand how could somebody leave this cause. It's just the right way, and the conviction was just so completely set in by that time. And then when she left, that kind of, I didn't question how could she leave, and she was like, "Why don't you?" So I spoke to her, and she said, "Why don't you join some Sufi movements?" I was like, what are you talking about? You know, because I was, I was captured as soon as I converted to Islam, so I didn't really know much. And I think a lot of the people who go on to be quite extreme are converts to Islam. But then she didn't go very much into it after that. She should have possibly done that. Maybe I would have gone and experienced something different.
For me, one of the most memorable moments that sticks out in my mind is that, have any of you seen the movie American History X? So there's a scene in that where the main character, who was a far-right extremist, is in prison and he's been raped by other white inmates professing the same ideology. And the beautiful thing about that movie is the compassion of the black history teacher that he had, who never gave up on him, came into prison and he's asked him as he's lying on the table after just getting stitches, and he says, "Derek, has anything you've ever done made your life better?" And he breaks down crying and shakes his no. And when I watched that movie, I asked myself the same question. And I broke down crying and said no. And it takes an incredible amount of energy to hold that negativity, to be that way, and it's exhausting. And it's done at the expense of relationship, joy, all of those things. And I describe life as like in that state, trying to swim upstream. Everything is a struggle. It's just like being in quicksand. And then on the flip side of it, when we make those different choices, all of a sudden it's more like being in an inner tube going downstream in a nice, lazy, sunny day. It's kind of, and once you have that experience, you go like, why would I want to go back to that? But it's asking those questions that start the unraveling process, and it's little. Yeah, if you came to me, try to go through the front door of the mind, my armor was so thick, I could, but the compassion piece, it cheats and it bypasses it and gets behind the armor. And it's how to just sneak it past the front of the fence.
I wondered if there was anything that you learned about Quakerism that has kind of come back to you as you're now on this stage of your journey.
The political Islam that I was carrying did, in a way, come from this compassion, and it's hard to see, but I genuinely wanted to solve the issues of the world. I wanted this, the violation to stop. I wanted, I remember seeing images of a missile that was about to crash into Iraq at the time, and the American soldiers had written Ramadan Mubarak on the missile. And that was such a powerful image, and I remember being so outraged and thinking, who is going to stop this? If I'm not part of a political movement, or if I don't try to better the situation, then I will be accountable for not, solving this issue. So it came from this idea of wanting to help the situation, but then with that came hatred and anger, and it was difficult to find the balance once I got quite into it.
One of the biggest lessons I've learned, I spent, you're motivated to save the white race from extinction, and I wanted to fix the world. Right? I was unhappy in the world, and I spent 10, 15 years of my life trying to change the world. But what I've learned is that I now have a far greater impact on the world by focusing on changing me and who I am in the world. And often in the political movements, you know, you can approach that extremist political ideology using the words compassion and such. The way now I engage when I listen to somebody speaking, you can take the New Testament or any religious book for that matter, and you listen to the language of somebody talking about it. And are they talking about, and if they're from the heart, they'll be talking about inclusion, about love, connection, compassion, bringing people together. If they're talking from their ego, then it's going to be about black and white, rigid thinking, good, evil, us, them, and even though they're talking about the same book, it's a completely different message, and we can be searching for one, but get tricked by the words of the other. I think that's an important thing. And as far as early intervention goes, I think the work of survivors of violence and extremism is a critical piece that often gets overlooked. And you know, to meet face to face with someone who has been on the receiving end of you know, what I once did or what one of my colleagues once did is an extremely powerful thing. And one of my friends, and I knew him back when I was in the White Aryan Resistance, he did a gay bashing and severely beat a gay man, broke his facial bones and everything. And later on was working for the Simon Wiesenthal Center at their Holocaust Museum. He's a former like myself, and he comes face to face with the man that he beat 20 years ago. And they made a film about it that was nominated for an Academy Award called Facing Fear. But it's that reconciliation process, and it's just so important to have that the survivors and the forgiveness aspect.
You know, I started off by talking about, you know, this sense that these problems feel like they're being solved via sort of a really big geopolitical chess game at a distance, remote control chess game like that. And I think tonight what we've heard and what we've seen very powerfully is the importance and the impact of voice and of personal stories in all sorts of ways. And but I have to say that I never take for granted, I never underestimate the thanks that I want to give to people who are willing to share those stories, because it's not always easy to do, and it's giving of something very personal of yourself in a public setting. So I'm sure I would like to, on behalf of all of us, thank Tony and Hadia for being willing to share, be open, be honest, be self-critical, and that's really important. And I think one of the reasons that human stories are so powerful is because they're incomplete and they're complicated, and we can't fit them into neat boxes, and they make us kind of twitch, and they make us they challenge our assumptions, and they make us think differently about things in a way that I don't think we get the opportunity to do often enough. And I think both of your stories that you shared with us tonight have challenged our stereotypes, and they've challenged our assumptions, and good. I think the more that we do that in this space, the better.